Welcome. This is the Drupal usability meeting for December 2nd, 2022. I'm Benji Fisher moderating, and also here are Ralph Kohler, who's sharing his screen, Erin McHale, Antonia Mincheva, and Simo Helston. So Ralph, please start us off.
Okay, I wanted to bring up two or maybe three details that surfaced during the three presentations I did in regards of the planned changes to the blocks in the admin system, administration menu, and it's basically, the meta issue for the record is 3318110, and I've left comments on the corresponding child issues. And the first is basically in issue number, which it was covering the path, 2862564. It's move custom block library to content, and it's comment number 90. And it was something in the course while we were discussing the issue, the changes. We've noticed in 2 out of 3 of the discussions that the exact definition of blocks and what the difference is between a custom block and a system block and those inline blocks was quite vague, let's put it that way. It was the same for me. I wasn't really aware, and it's also the problem that, for example, if you're in Layout Builder, you have there the button create custom block, and it's the same term used for if you create a custom block there. The difference is there it's reusable. In Layout Builder, it's not reusable. And those differences weren't really apparent and not everyone was aware of. And it turned out that most people had the desire to be more in control. Also, another detail, totally unrelated, in the last discussion in the regular lean coffee table from Drupal Munich, someone brought up the point why he prefers paragraphs over, for example, Layout Builder, because there he has all the paragraph blocks available, in contrast to the block system, the custom block system, where he is not aware because half of it is missing. And there in the issue, I've added a screenshot from, for example, the Gutenberg module. Point is, it illustrates quite well the different kinds of blocks available in that installation. For example, for concept modules, for core, custom blocks, as well as system blocks, and so forth, and also menus.
Can you pause for a moment?
Yep.
So first of all, are there any questions from the people in the meeting about this distinction between reusable and non-reusable blocks, also known as inline blocks? The non-reusable ones, as far as I know, only come up with Layout Builder. And we have talked about it before, and I remember several weeks ago we discussed an issue allowing people to make reusable blocks from the Layout Builder interface.
Yep.
And then if you could just reopen that, go back to that window for a second. I think
screenshot?
basically, yeah. I think basically those same categories are available in the Layout Builder, except it's there's a lot of scrolling and they're all vertically in the right sidebar.
I would have to revisit the other installation where I've installed Gutenberg, but I'm not sure if everything.
Maybe not all, but they are organized by the provider, the module that provides them, and so forth. Okay, so go on. Thanks.
And the intention was basically, if you go into block layout, currently into structure, block layout, custom block library, then you only have custom blocks created within the custom block library and nothing else. And as you see, you have a single block there, but basically there are more. And the desire was, even though you won't have the full extent of options, for example, to edit a block, to rename it, to change it, add fields or whatsoever, it would be nice to have a custom library you're able to filter, and you're able to have the full scope of blocks available in a system. Because currently you have to look at different pages and different places within the UI. For example, in views, you have the custom block library. There's already a filter. Custom block reusable is true, but it's an either or. So if you expose this filter for visitors, then you're only able to show reusable and non-reusable, and not both, for example. And the wish was basically, it would be useful to see everything and then being able to filter. And in a related way, there's also layouts. Oops, where I am. There I'm.
Okay, so again, I'd like you to pause for a second.
Okay.
Any comments on this so far? I actually think that although it came up while you were discussing the navigation, I think this would make a really good follow-up issue to the one we discussed a few weeks ago about making giving an option to take a block created in the layout builder and make it reusable. So
that's the issue 2999491.
Thank you.
That's the issue.
Yeah, so it seems like a good follow-up to this would be to make the filter exposed in that view, so that people browsing the blocks can see the non-reusable ones if they choose, and maybe also a bulk operation to turn a non-reusable block into a reusable one from that view. So I think those would be really good follow-ups to this issue. Aaron, go ahead.
Thanks. I remember discussing I think it was in Slack in the blog content channel. So the context I'm coming at this from is I worked on a site, built a site in the early days of Layer Builder before we had the idea of like inline or non-reusable blocks. So we were creating blocks and putting them in Layer Builder. Every block was basically reusable, and there was a lot of content blocks. Like we would end up with over, at least 100, maybe more. The thing I found is it became very quickly, the block library became completely unmanageable, because a lot of these blocks were created in context of how they were going to be used. For instance, you know, a block that was meant to be a part of the page only made sense in the context of the page it was meant to be placed in. You know, that might be like a paragraph of text about something, and the title quite often would be used to represent like a heading level 2 or 3. So again, it only really made sense in the context of the page we're looking at. So coming from that context, I'm struggling to see like a case where you would actually want to see the non-reusable blocks. Even from like, you know, I think it was maybe the example of like auditing them, but like when a block is non-reusable, it is I guess structurally tied to the entity or node or whatever that it's placed within. That by that I mean like if you delete that node, that block any non-reusable blocks will also get deleted on the next cron run, so they don't hang around. So yeah, unless we were providing something like because like you said, Benji, an option, a bulk operation to be able to, you know, turn a whole load of non-reusable blocks to be reusable, that I could see being a reason to then say, okay, let's provide this option. But unless we have a reason to do it, you know, like we're introducing that, I don't see a strong reason to expose them out of the box in the UI, because obviously you can do it. You could build a view that exposes them, but whether Drupal core should do that out of the box unless there's a reason to do it, I'm not sure of. So that's where I am coming from in this.
Yeah, I think that's why I suggested as a follow-up to that issue. 2.9.
Yeah, I think definitely a follow-up issue would be a sensible idea for sure. So we can properly discuss it, because understanding that use case is important as well, and we need a dedicated issue to properly do that.
Yeah, and I've posted a link to that issue in the Zoom chat. Okay, go on, Ralph.
1 second, I'm just starting up a backdrop installation. It's also a point I've mentioned in the thread. I guess Aaron mentioned, or if it was somewhere else, I'm not sure right now. 1 second, but it's something Irina brought up. Yeah, it's under reports, blogs. Yep, there it is. It's basically about the idea having a complete overview of blocks available in a system. That is basically the idea also behind the custom block library, allowing other blocks to be shown aside the reusable custom blocks.
Okay,
so for example,
you said this is backdrop?
Yeah, let's backdrop.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think like a report like this could be quite interesting. The thing with the custom block library is it is, I think I noted this, is like technically it's a list of entities, and like, you know, blocks that are provided by modules, you know, system blocks are not entities, they're architecturally completely different. So I don't know if like the block library that would in future sit under content is necessarily like, I think maybe there's value in keeping that just for content blocks, custom blocks, whatever we want to call them, because those are the things in there. You have operations, you can edit those, you can delete those, you can add new ones. Like it would almost be like if we displayed media in the same view as nodes, it would, I worry it would kind of confuse those things even more than they already are. But maybe like a separate report, like a report like this that just shows you that entire output and gives you that, you know, that context like we can see here could be useful. Again, I don't know if like non-reusable blocks, I kind of come back to that thing of like, yeah, maybe we should expose this in the block library if there's a reason to do it. But yeah, I'm still on the fence on that one.
Yeah, I'm also not sure if exposing, for example, system blocks from core or from contrib modules also in the custom block library would a good idea. But as I said, having a page or an overview of all available blocks would be useful. And so maybe a reports page might be the better choice. And as you and Benji said, I'm also in line just creating a follow-up issue for the custom block library in regards of the reusable and not reusable might be a good idea.
Yeah, I guess in Drupal 7, the block configuration page did that. It listed all of the available blocks, and typically most of them were in the bottom section where not currently used. But when we redesigned the user interface for that page, I guess it was decided that that was too much information, and you don't see the list of available blocks until you click to add one to a region, and then a modal pops up and shows all of them. Yeah. So there used to be such a report, and there isn't anymore.
Yeah, but my idea is, one potential problem I see is if you have a complex site, a huge one, and you are a developer or a site builder coming new to the site, or maybe you're working in an agency as a consultant and just get into a site you've worked on before and revisit it after, let's say, 6 months, and you have no idea what you did 6 months ago. And during those 6 months, for example, the people in the team working on the site regularly also made changes, added new blocks and so forth, then it's quite hard to keep an overview. In particular, if for example, already if just non-reusable blocks are not visible in the custom block library, then it's quite cumbersome to find every non-reusable custom block added or changed within any layout. So some sort of overview might be helpful.
Yeah, certainly worth discussing.
And yeah, in the same vein is the other issue. Yep, that's issue number 3318558. Currently, if you, for example, in a content type, and you have set the layout options to use layout builder and allow each content type. And let's say you have a large site, 20, 30 or more content types. And let's say in 5 to 10, you have layout builder checked as well as allow each content items. Currently, you have to go into manage layout to find out, or even if you have overrides, then you have to go into content. I'm not sure if I have any content in here. Yeah, it is. I'm not sure if I've overwritten it, but then you have to go into a node, go into layout, and then find out if there are any particular individual changes to that. And that's in the same vein like the custom block library problem, and the same problem like I've described before. If you have someone coming new to a complex site, finding out which content types have layouts and which content types have individual overrides per node. To find that, you have to go basically into each of the content types, and in the worst case into each of the nodes, so to find out which layouts changed, and having perhaps a list view showing which content types, or maybe a reports page, which content types have layout builder activated, and a layout and global layout for that content type, or have layout overrides on a per node basis would be helpful as well. That was basically the conclusion in 2 of the groups.
Okay, that seems reasonable. Aaron, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess I think there's definitely value in providing a way to understand, what content types, bundles, whatever, have like a layout override enabled, and potentially of those ones, like how many content items, how many entities like have their layout overridden. Like I can see the value in something like that. For me, like I wouldn't see the value in going beyond that in terms of like to non-reusable custom blocks, because they're inherently part of the piece of the, if we think of them as part of the piece of content, like it would almost be like the equivalent of wanting to know like how many media items are on any given like piece of content, or how many paragraphs of text there are. I mean, you might want to know these things, but I'm struggling to think of a use case for why you would want to know, like, on any given piece of content, like, are there non-reusable custom blocks? And so I guess like I can totally see why the value in understanding like which ones have their layout overridden. But for like non-reusable custom blocks, I'm not sure I see the value in why you would want to know which ones are using them or not.
Okay, and Simo, you have something to say?
Yeah. Well, I'm starting to hear that this is kind of a one of the use cases is to kind of reduce the need for documentation, and on the other hand, another approach is modules that create documentations, like for instance a module that creates ER diagram of the site, or stuff like that. So I'm thinking that if this is something that when a person comes to a new site, or to a site where like there have been made changes since the last time the person visited, then instead of having kind of a permanent like changes to the kind of a day-to-day user interface, at the moment I'm more inclined to looking at somehow generating a report that this is that, like kind of a structural report on the structure, like kind of one-off. So kind of I'm wondering if kind of not like more like a reporting tool than kind of a permanent addition to the interface, to keep it as simple as possible for daily routines.
Yeah, I think if you go to admin content, there are already a bunch of things you can filter on. You might have an additional filter for content types that have the layout overridden, since that's a per entity, a per content type piece of information. So yeah, I'm not sure that it's something that should be provided by core, but it's certainly something that's worth discussing, something worth opening an issue for. And I think it's when you go and ask people for feedback, as we have. We do have our own agenda in mind. Like we're trying to build consensus for rearranging the menu items. But I think when we do that, we also have a responsibility to consider these other suggestions that come up, and they're not closely related to what we started with. So I think it's the right thing to do is to open new issues for these new ideas.
Yeah, and
Ralph, do you have, oh, go ahead, Aaron.
Well, I was just gonna say on that, I think like we want to maybe structure, like come up with. Okay, so I'm mindful that like because Drupal is the way it is, we could provide in theory, you know, like a view that exposes every possible last piece of information. But like, you know, that's probably useful to no one. So I guess that the thing I'm getting at is that like we probably want to approach this from like a user story perspective, like, you know, what is the task or what is the problem that we're trying to solve here, and then, you know, come up with the solution. So because you know that will, if we understand if the problem for, you know, with the custom blocks thing and reorganizing things, like the problem that we see potentially is that, you know, people find it hard to, you know, find these block pages, or, you know, they're buried within parts of the interface, or you know, I'm coming up with these off the top of my head. So, you know, maybe something about like how you know, people don't realize there's these different block types and how they relate to layout builder and all that kind of stuff. So like the way we're solving that is by bringing some more consistency to the structure and bringing blocks in line with the consistency of navigation of other things, so it's easier to find. So I'm you know, for these additional suggestions, as you said, worth considering, but let's also think of like figure out what the problem is we're trying to solve first, and then find what the best solution is. I think that's probably the best approach to it.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I view opening the issue as the start of the discussion, not the end.
Yeah.
But maybe if you take a look at the last point I wanted to bring up, that combines basically the underlying problem of understanding. It's if you're in a layout, in layout builder, and oops, let's make a new chunk. And if you add a block, then you have create custom block. And that naming of that button, as well as those add block, is a bit misleading, because the expectation of many of the people were, hey, I create a custom block, and if I go there into custom block library, yeah, let's add a block. A new custom block. Why is it invalid?
I can see another follow-up issue here.
Or maybe a misconfiguration on my end.
Maybe you have to click on the PM part as well as each of
that might be, yeah.
This is the thing with browser. I think this is all browser, like part of the problem with like these browser-based ones we're relying on there. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
It's like we can never guarantee what the experience is going to be like for each user when we're relying on browser-based ones.
Yeah, and if I reload the custom block library, a new custom
it's not
block
going to show up because
exactly
it's not reusable. Yeah, that's That's the issue you started with, isn't it? Or the comment you started with?
Yeah, it's overlapping. In that regard, it's basically about where it is. It's about issue number 3318558.
Mhm.
So the
Okay.
terminology used in the layout builder.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
I think that's an important one. You know, it's like we're maybe something like that. It just needs to say create content, because in this context, like you just want to add content to your page. It doesn't. It's the fact that we're using a block to store that is kind of less important. That only really becomes important when you have more than one block type, because then you get the ability to select which block type you want to add. And so maybe if that screen appears, we would want to be careful how we word that so it's clear what
Yeah,
they're
but
selecting from.
But ironically, if you take a look at the current labels for the categories, you have different types. You have content fields and core, for example, which is a system block, and custom, which is a custom block. Individual, which is basically a country block.
Right.
So also, I'm not sure if create content, because you don't know what kind of content is created there.
Yeah, I suppose it could confuse with like content types, which would not be applicable here.
And then also, if you take into consideration the issue 2999491, we've mentioned before, when the option is added with the checkbox to change not reusable block to a reusable block, which is also irreversible, as far as I know, then it makes things even more potentially confusing. So it's
Right.
tricky.
I think when we discussed that several weeks ago, one of my comments was that at least adding that checkbox will help educate people about the difference.
Yep.
Which is, as you pointed out earlier today, a lot of people aren't aware of. So
yeah.
And I think we also, if I remember correctly, I think we agreed it shouldn't be a checkbox because it's a one-way action. So it should be like a button and actually, did we even agree that it shouldn't even be on the create form? It should be like an action you can do after you've created the block.
that was certainly one of the things we discussed.
Don't you love long issues?
It'd
It'd be great if there was like a way to just jump to like, you know, the usability review comments, or like, I don't know, maybe there's something. How do we navigate long issues better? Maybe GitLab can help us with that.
I kind of remember us talking about this in the summertime. So it's kind of a long way go back.
Yeah.
I kind of think that it should be. Probably we ended up with the idea that it should be available also afterwards.
Yeah. So I think I'd like to move on to the issue that Aaron wanted to bring up. Is there anything more to say on these comments before we do that? Before we move on?
No, not from my end.
Okay.
Shall I end the sharing, or shall I keep it on? And
I can share.
okay, then 1 second. Stop.
I'm just going to reorganize some tabs. So bear with me a second. And yeah, I want to double check. I'm going to bring up the right issue because I seem to be collecting a bunch of issues that for discussion. I'm just going to start sharing, and I'm using the site Benji spun up, which is thankfully has the Umami demo in it. Okay, can you see the issue for today's meeting? I think you can.
Yes.
You just have to get rid of the zoom toolbar. Okay, so I guess we could look at, yeah, this is a bit nebulous. So let me just clarify this entry here. With regards to when I presented this issue to,
And this is the same meta issue
yeah,
we talked about before.
yes. So this is the for the avoidance of doubt. This is the 3318110, the meta issue for reorganizing block items in the administrative UI. I'm looking at the comment. I posted comment 10 about when I presented to the central development team at UE, which is University of Edinburgh. One of the things that came up was from a colleague, and this was kind of I didn't directly mention it in this comment in a way because it was more general. It was a sort of general concern about the admin UI, but quite often this team, they do a lot of like site building, so they'll be adding fields and then configuring them. So the thing was like, if they're coming in here into, say they go into like content types, and then they have to they add a field, right? They're in this interface, but then they might have to go to a they might have to go to a completely different part of the admin UI, or they might have to come back out and go to views and go somewhere else. So what they were saying is they find that they're jumping around a lot and clicking around a lot. And I guess the thing that came into my head was, what if we had a way to navigate the admin UI based on like related topics or related links? So, and this kind of comes back to the whole under like some pages, I think if I come to custom block library and block types, like we have some links here. So like if you add a custom block type, you can then click over here to the blocks page. Now this is just one step away, but when you start adding, like if you start adding, say, you're adding content types and fields, and then you come over to content, and then you have to you come over to content, you can add content or edit content because you want to see your changes, and then maybe you have to come back over to structure and go back into content types. When we were looking at when we're looking at reorganizing the block interfaces so that block types would be at the top level here, one of the things that we've done as part of that issue is, in order to standardize, we've removed this paragraph of text. Now, I'm okay with it in the interest of standardizing, but I still think this is a really good idea, because if we did it for like all of those pages under here. So if, for instance, under content types, there was a nice piece of paragraph that was like, hey, you can go over to content to see the add or edit content. And I wondered if there was a better pattern though for doing that, like some kind of related links section or info that would show at the bottom of admin pages that would then allow the user to jump to other relevant parts of the admin UI that are maybe a few clicks away. So that was kind of the one I'd been wanting to bring up for a few weeks. And if we think it's a good idea, then I can set up an issue for it or find an issue to discuss it. But I also think it's kind of relevant to what's happening with help topics as well, because there's a lot of work going on around help topics and the help UI. So sort of related to that too.
Yeah, I've long thought that a big hierarchical menu should not be the only way we have for navigating the admin interface. I don't have any great ideas on alternatives, but certainly some sort of related links would be a start.
Yeah, or even like a search, like a quick search interface. Like there's one, I think it's coffee. Let me just double check.
I think that's right. That's
yeah. So the coffee module is super useful because it's a keyboard shortcut, and it brings up let me bring up this screenshot actually. So yeah, it brings up this quick jump list that you can search through to get to different parts of the UI. Now, again, this might be a case, like you said, there's multiple ways to solve this problem. But it does sound like that it's at least worth having an issue where we can collect things. And if we had, it would be great to see, you know, how other systems, not even just content management systems, but think about like, you know, mobile phone UIs, like iOS or in Windows and settings or Mac OS and settings or other applications that have big sprawling settings screens, how they potentially deal with this problem. Because if we started collecting some screenshots or, you know, how that works, we could use as the basis for some recommendations. So it sounds like we agree that it's at least a problem worth investigating. So I'm happy to create an issue where we can further discuss it.
Ralph, Simo, do you have any comments on this?
Yeah, well, I think comparing to non-websites, non-web systems, one of the things we have is the URLs. So that's kind of a technical point of view to that. But also, I think the hierarchy, having a hierarchy, is kind of a helping to structuralize that. So it's helping cognition if the hierarchy is built in a good way. But then again, kind of a naming patterns are another ways that could be used to support cognition, like kind of a. So there are different ways, but I think like we need to have some kind of hierarchy because of the path structure.
Yeah, and I don't think we're proposing taking that away. I think this is just obviously like, how do we make it easier to jump between different parts of that hierarchy?
Yeah, so then it's kind of different parts of hierarchy. I kind of started thinking about that OSX Finder, and I actually hate it, but it's kind of the way it has different levels in columns.
Yeah, the impression I get is that the coffee UI, this is actually quite an old screenshot of it. It looks a lot nicer when you have like the gin theme and stuff now, but like, yeah, I get the impression this is quite inspired from the quick, what do they call it? The quick jump search thing in macOS Finder.
Yeah, or also in GNOME nowadays. So yeah, and this was actually, it was also, there was this was also a part of what's that admin toolbar module that, but it was kind of dropped out from admin toolbar because it had some security issue, and after that, I think at least in our company we started moving, like replacing it with coffee or dropping it.
So I was also thinking that like the admin toolbar is one solution to this, and when you have Gin toolbar installed, it the Gin toolbar module. Okay, I was expecting more screenshots. Let me see if the Gin theme just has it, because the Gin toolbar, I think. Yeah, here we go. That's what I was thinking. So the Gin toolbar it uses the admin toolbar module as well, but down the left, you have the items down the left, and then you can hover over each one and the submenu opens. So again, there's like ideas here around, is actually, do we need a more fundamental rethink of the toolbar? And could something like a left-hand toolbar actually be potentially a more efficient way of navigating?
Ralph,
Again, it's worth considering.
Yeah, I think so we need at least one navigation that is discoverable, and one that is really fast, and that's kind of a.
I think Ralph wanted to say something.
I think it might make sense to provide more than one way to navigate. For one, definitely a good thing to rethink the admin toolbar, be it as in the contrib module or the admin menu in general in core, but at the same time to provide other ways to shortcut and quickly navigate, like you described, would be also a good thing. So that in a certain context, for example, if you work in content types, that you have buttons or direct links to go to often used other pages might be beneficial, but I would step away from put those links into those help texts like they were before, or were like they are currently, but instead make it more apparent and more actionable, so that it's easier for the cognition of the people. And it's also, in general, I wanted to note, it's also something I've observed a few years ago in an auditorium in a DrupalCon and a Drupal camp Vienna, and there I was sitting behind someone who clicked on tens of pages to configure something. The person was totally knowledgeable, totally skilled in Drupal, but there were so many clicks in different contexts, different pages. It was confusing to watch, but also cumbersome to watch, because it was so much switching. And to make that easier and faster and also reduce the need of clicks might be also a thought. So might be important to study which tasks are used or which tasks are necessary, which pages are necessary to accomplish a certain task.
Yeah. And one of the things that was in my head was just around like I said, what if I come back over to block types? So yeah, instead of something like this, which I think like I was thinking like something like a below here, maybe at the bottom, like, because I was thinking of what is a standard pattern that would work across the admin UI that's the least intrusive, but it's still like really useful. So like maybe something at the bottom that's like a quick links or something. And it is easy to use, like maybe has almost like button style things or something. I'm going to do something really drastic, and you're all probably going to hate me for doing this, but bear with me. I'm going to, oh, do you know what? I can't, because this is Drupal 10. I was gonna enable the 7 theme, and I can't do that. Let's enable Olivero, and we're gonna set Olivero as the admin theme. Let's see how this breaks everything. Oh, surprisingly, it doesn't. The reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted to come over to, oh boy, structure, block layout, and I want to find the, does Olivero have a sidebar region? Question mark? Apparently it doesn't. Okay. Or it does, or does it?
Sidebar.
Oh, it does. You're right. Okay. What you can do is you can put the administration menu in the sidebar, right? And this is how it used to be in the days of like Drupal, Drupal 6, Drupal 7, and well, I don't know where the sidebar is, but this isn't working the way I'd hoped. I thought this was going to be like 2 seconds too, but it's, no, I don't know where the sidebar is. Anyway, it used to be in like Drupal 6 and Drupal 7, we just had the administration menu was in the left sidebar in using Martech. And the good thing about that was you could very quick, like even if you were deep in the admin UI, you could see the menu trail of where you were. And you could see, you could quickly jump up a few levels, where if you're like levels deep in here, I guess it's like it's harder to see all of the items above you. So if you're in like structure and you were, under content types, and you were doing something under here and you wanted to very quickly jump to comment types, that would be available on the menu on the left, because you were deep within structure. So I guess there's something like that, like a quick jump menu, maybe as an idea, but I don't know. That was obviously slightly better implementation than maybe we had in Drupal 6 or 7, but there's
Yeah,
another idea.
Two quick comments. One, you haven't mentioned breadcrumbs. And breadcrumbs by default are tied to the menu structure. So they're in a sense redundant. They are also tied to the hierarchical menu structure. And the second comment, if you want at this point the other links under the structure menu, you can do that with a menu block. And then you just have to decide where you want to put that menu block. So that's something that can easily be implemented.
Actually, if I switch the toolbar to the left, I do get a kind of like jump like menu like this. And does this stay open? Oh, it does stay open.
It does stay open. It does not automatically expand. I think that the number of levels is fixed, and you can expand as much as you like within that sidebar. But if you go deeper and deeper down the menu structure, it will not add items to the toolbar.
I do wonder if this is what, like, the fact we have this way of navigating in core, and yet we don't, we only expose this under certain conditions, or if you like select it on the toolbar to actively expose this. I would argue this is perhaps a slightly quicker way of navigating around the toolbar, but than what we provide, by default, which is just the toolbar on the top, and no kind of drop links.
Yeah, I always use the toolbar like this, unless the admin toolbar module is installed.
Yeah.
We're getting close to the end of the hour. Oh, one other thing I wanted to mention is that I can't find the issue for it, but I know that people have been discussing for a long time gathering telemetry information. So I think that would include sort of Google Analytics type information for Drupal sites and what pages people go to from what other pages. And if we had that sort of data for how people navigate the admin menu, then it could give us some real good insights into how we should add sort of related links. Other than that, one other thing I wanted to mention, it's not at all related to usability, but I just want people to be aware. XJM or Jess Mirbo announced on Slack and Twitter a day or two ago that she is no longer working at Acquia, is no longer being paid to be a full-time core committer and release manager. If anyone can help her find a new job or help her stay as a core committer, that would be a wonderful addition. Oh, and Ralph found, I guess, the telemetry issue. Aaron, since you're screen sharing, would you mind opening up that? Thanks. And for the record, it's 2940737.
Yeah, it's been around for quite a while. I guess people are always wary of this kind of stuff, particularly nowadays, because of how much data we're all aware organizations and companies are gathering about us. But you can't argue that it would, as you said, it would give us some useful insights into how people are using the admin UI and things.
Yeah. Okay, so any other closing comments?
No, I'll just I'll try and get an issue created for this, and then I'll share it in Slack once for just so we can further explore how best we can improve the navigation, ways of navigating rather, and yeah, I'll share that when I've done that.
Yeah, and Ralph, I also suggested you open new issues, possibly related to the layout builder issue. Do you have what you need to do that? Do you want to discuss it further on Slack?
I guess I would open two issues, separate ones, one for the custom block library with the distinction between reusable and not reusable, and one for the layouts. And I guess for the button, we don't need one because it's already in the terminology issue.
Yeah, we already have
Or
an
layout
issue
builder.
for that.
But should those two added as childs to the meta, or should it be separated just as related?
I think just related.
Yeah, because it's a follow-up, not really necessary for the outcome of the meta. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all. And of course, we'll do it again next week.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.